Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dean Rogers Show. Today, we got another very special guest, Alex Camacho. Alex, what's up, man?
What's up, man? Aloha. How you doing?
Aloha. Welcome to the podcast, man. Super stoked to have you. I'm still on a high from the last event we just had together at your Dealmaker Summit. What an incredible event. What an incredible group of people that came together. So huge props to you, man. That was super fun. And a lot of great people, man. So that was
Thank you,
cool.
man. Appreciate you showing up along with Jason and Stratton, man. You're the Cali Crushers. People loved you, man. I swear
I like
they
that,
loved
man.
you.
You said that. I'm gonna roll with the Cali Crushers, dude. That's cool. Well, hey guys, to give you guys a quick background on Alex, just to highlight him, give you the highlight reel. So Alex has done real estate in some of the toughest markets. It's crazy to me. You've done over 125 real estate investment deals over the past 5 years, focusing primarily on residential properties in California. Mostly I've seen in Southern California, in Hawaii, a multifamily unit in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places. Like, these are some of the toughest markets, and you've been able to put together profitable deals. So that's pretty incredible. You're known as a master connector, right? I mean, I could see that firsthand when we were at the event, and you already know successful people are around other successful people. There's no mystery to that. That's the blueprint. So clearly something that you're doing well. You mentor and coach people and help lead other investors how to take it to the next level in their career. Of course, you're speaking on stages and doing different things like that, helping people to get their mindset right, how to have the right lifestyle by design. That's one thing I'm envious, living, as me and Indar said at the Dealmaker Summit, we're living vicariously through you. So you've done an incredible job with that as well. So if you guys want to stay connected with Alex, you can go to Alex Camacho TV on Instagram. You got a lot of great content on there that I like to watch myself. And you're a brother from another mother who likes to say, let's go. So I love that. That's my call to action too, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, let's dive in here, man. I'm excited. I'm fired up. And I want to hear your story, because everybody's got a unique story. And then we'll pepper you with some questions. So let's kick it off with who you are, man, what you're all about, and where you came from.
Yeah, so thank you, Dean, for having me on. It's an honor to share my story. If it could help anybody, that's what I'm about. Totally about win-win and helping create other leaders, other investors inside, these, markets, that whether my market or other markets. But long story short, man, I grew up in Southern California in the Valley, which is the San Fernando Valley. And, humble beginnings. Both my parents are Mexican immigrants. And so, first generation, just grew up with not much, but we had a lot of love in the family. And so I saw my parents work very hard and make a lot of sacrifices. So I've always, I think, been ambitious, because I recognized pretty early on that I was fortunate to not grow up in Mexico, let's say. Although it's a great country, there's also limited opportunities. So I, got a job pretty young, right out of high school, and was in telemarketing, just so I could earn my own money. And then, so I fell in love with sales pretty early on. And then, I got lucky got to go into banking, man. So I was working for Chase Bank before. It was called Chase Bank. I don't know how old you are, but it was called WAMU before, or there was,
Yeah.
Washington Mutual. And so the bank teller. And that set me off to this, like, wow, man, people actually have some money, and people that look like they have money, don't have money, right? And people that don't look like they have money actually have money, because you see a lot in banking. And then kind of moved up the ranks there. It was amazing, but there was definitely a ceiling there, because you're not going to make more than, say, 80, 100 grand, or at least that back then. And so I went into the mortgage business and left banking after 5 years, although a lot of people thought I was crazy. I've always been one to take calculated risks, because I saw that there was a limited upside there, right? And then I went into the mortgage business, and it was before the market crashed back in 2008. So that shows you how long I've been working. Some people think I'm a little bit younger, but I'm 41. So
You got that fresh look, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's the genes, man. So I've been working, hard for 20 years. So overnight 20 years success, I guess. But yeah, I went into banking, and then through banking, I just I recognized that limitation. So then I jumped into the mortgage business. Mortgage business did really well for those about 3 years. First time that I made six figures in a year, but I was in my early mid 20s, and I was a fool, had bad habits, had toxic relationship, had all that going on, partying in Hollywood, popping bottles and spending all my money there. And then the market crashed and I went from making a bunch of money to like no money really fast. And then I was jokingly like basically I was back on my mom's like couch, like after like making hundreds of thousands of dollars and having a Porsche and having a couple houses. And but what I learned during that time, man, was that like you got to own assets. I mean, you have to have a profitable business. You have to have the right habits. You need to be around mentors. You need to be around the right circle of people. And so I found real estate as an agent around that time, and I did a bunch of short sales. And that was kind of cool because then I got to see the real estate side of things because I've been on the finance and banking side of of the financial system, and I really fell in love with just houses and real estate. And I found that hey, real estate's a better match for me overall. But I saw a lot of house flippers in LA making like $100,000 a flip. And I was making like $10,000 as an agent, to get them this great deal. And I'm like, I'm on the wrong side of this thing, bud. Like, I think I need to be doing what they're doing. But I didn't have any money. And then let life get in the way. There was no bigger pockets and podcasts, and YouTube wasn't really, what it is now. And so I ended up going back into the mortgage business and the wholesale side for a little bit. I did some Airbnb arbitrage and some property management. But I always had that seed in the back of my mind, like planted that, damn, I think I could be a great investor, house flipper. And so back in 2017 is I came across this podcast, The Bigger Pockets, started listening to that, and it kept talking about, hey, you got to have a mentor, or you got to pay coaching, or you got to find a way to learn the game. And I didn't have any money, but I did have a lot of sales skills and things like that. So I literally just jumped on Craigslist, got a job, or applied to a couple of these sales jobs for real estate investors. And one of them gave me a job as a telemarketer. Took me about 3 months to find my first deal, just pounding the phones, cold calling every day. I had a little salary. It wasn't much. But more than anything, I was like in the game trying to prove that, hey, I think I could do this game. And then I got my first deal, and then I started giving him consistently one deal a month. I mean, he wanted monster deals. So I learned a lot about getting deep discounts with that company for about a year. And then since I wasn't making very much, I ended up getting a job at another company or getting recruited by a bigger company with much bigger as a salary. I had a percentage of equity. So I was tied to the end product, making some percentage of that. And they were buying a lot more. They weren't a wholesaling company. They were flipping like a couple hundred properties a year. They're kind of like a mini hedge fund, but I learned a lot of processes from them. And then, I saved more money because I was making more, and I helped them buy like about 50 houses in that year and a half I was working for them. So that 2.5 year stretch of period, I learned a ton. Saved a couple $100,000. And about 3.5 years ago, I started flipping on my own. And then during that time, I've kind of created my own real estate investment company. I started creating a brand with this, with my own personal brand with social media. I've created this company, this kind of deal makers community where I'm kind of elevating other people. I just kind of created something that I wish I had, some like meetups and some way to get around other people that are doing the business. Because SoCal could be very dog eat dog, the land of haves and have-nots. And things like that. So I wanted to create that because I found in the other markets that I invest in Phoenix and Hawaii, it really hasn't been the case. So just to wrap this thing up, about 2.5 years, 2 years ago during COVID, I got the opportunity after attending a mastermind to move to Hawaii, Maui, which I did. And then since I was already remote, about a year after that, I started to live part-time in Guadalajara, Mexico, because by then I had been making some money and I had had so much experience. I was able to remote flip in LA while living kind of the life of my dreams and traveling back and forth between these three cool places, LA, Maui, and Guadalajara, Mexico. And I've just been growing ever since and meet cool people like you and to share my story, kind of how I got to where I'm at and see if I can help anybody do something to create the life of their dreams, sort of like I have.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I gotta, dude, because I know more about you, like I'm ready to go deep into some of those key nuggets in your story, your journey. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about is, I think there's a lot of people that I've seen successful that came from those humble upbringings. But you know that there's millions and millions of others that just they don't do anything, right? They don't strive for more. They don't go after opportunities. What do you think about you is unique that you were in that environment and said, I want more. Like I got family around me that loves me. Like I got food, I got a roof over my head, but it's not enough. Like I want more. I see the celebrities and the stars on TV. Like I want that lifestyle. I want to have an abundant lifestyle. What about you do you think like pushed you to do that?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things, pivotal moments or times in your life that inspired to be more and to want to maximize your potential. I think what comes to mind is a couple of things. One of them is that I remember I used to drive around with my friends back in the day when I was a teenager, and we drive around, the San Fernando Valley, and it's surrounded by like hills, and in those hills there's a lot of like beautiful homes, and so we drive around in those hills, and to be honest with you, we'd be smoking weed, just kind of hanging out, and then I'd be like, man, I mean, who can afford to live in this big old house? I live in a one-bedroom apartment with a couple of my brothers, my mom and dad. Like, what type of people live in houses like this? So it was always that thought process of like, I want to do this. I think maybe not this size, but maybe I could end up, what would I have to do to be able to live a life where I could afford a house this size, this big? And then also I had a friend of mine pass away and got murdered back in high school as well. And I remember I was headed down to bad, I got arrested a couple of times and just, dumb stuff and things. And so I think when that happened, I think that was pivotal for me because I realized how short life is and not to just squander and waste it by just doing dumb things and hanging around the wrong people. So I got that telemarketing job that I mentioned earlier and just started really kind of getting around the right peer group, reading books, taking things a little bit more seriously, particularly because, my parents had sacrificed so much and I was just kind of squandering my opportunity. And then there's been other people along that path too. I think that have been inspiring. I think when I was in banking, I had a manager that, that kind of, really pushed me. And I remember I was a bank teller, but I was only a bank teller for like 3 or 4 months, and then boom, I moved up to new accounts, and then I'm like in new accounts, and I'm actually helping people with their bank accounts, and then I'm doing home equity lines of credit, and I'm doing stuff, and I'm like, dude, I'm like 19 years old, 20 years old, some kid from the ghetto, and I'm helping people, take out equity of the property, understanding these things, and that foundation helped a lot to see like, hey, these people are just normal people.
Wow, yeah.
I can do something with my life too, and among that, there's other stuff that happen. I think there's these. If you're paying attention, if you're around certain things, they can influence you to want more for yourself. And I think those are a couple of things that come to mind.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Those are some big things where you're seeing just every other day people that are doing certain things, and you're like, okay, I can do this too. Now, one of the things I love about your story that I didn't know enough about was you went and got hired by another company in real estate, flipping houses. I love that because I think a lot of people are either too prideful or their ego's too big, or they just have determined like, no, I got to grind it out and be an entrepreneur and do it all on my own from the very beginning. And I think that's an incredible hack to help speed up your process to go learn from someone else and walk into like, almost day one opportunity of doing deals and getting that experience. So were you just like willing and able to go and do that? And you wanted to just kind of cut your teeth under someone else's kind of company? Like,
yeah,
what set
I think
you up?
you said it perfectly that people either too prideful or, for whatever reason, they feel like they could just kind of do it on their own. Well, having failed in real estate before, with the mortgage business and whatnot, and then listening to these podcasts where I was talking about that, I was willing to make the sacrifice because for me, what I looked at it was like, hey, this is something I can go all in. It could be a long-term thing. I literally thought of it as like, if I put a decade into real estate investing, just going all in, I'll probably not make a lot of money in the first year or two, and then, but afterwards, I'm going to have the skills to make like hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So is it worth it for me to pay the price, whether it be a year or 2 years of my life, but then the rest of my life is kind of set up because I have the skills and the money and the resources to do this? And the answer to that was definitely a yes. And so it made it okay because I knew that the long term would pay off. I'm not going to say it was any easier because pounding the phones for, hours, 6, 7 hours and getting cussed out and all the work it is in cold calling and all the stuff to when you're starting out is extremely difficult. Also along the way, I am making these investors that I'm working for a lot of money. And that's another ego hit of like, hey man, yeah, it was great to do this deal, but I made $2,500 and this guy made like 100,000, right, in profit. So I think you have to kind of check your ego. But again, when I had that perspective of like, I want to master this vocation, this is something that I'm going to do long term. Because it was never just let me become a house flipper. It was let me become a master real estate investor. But I have to master flipping. So then that way, eventually I could keep and cherry pick all of them too. Because as you just said so well, I got to see the nuts and bolts. I got to see the ABCs. And so all those little nuances that you're not going to be able to conceptualize by reading a book or listening to a podcast, I was getting. And so I was in the game, although I was getting, paid very little. I was learning how to analyze deals, which is a skill set that is pretty much something I still use to this day. I was learning how to negotiate with contractors, with homeowners on that. Again, a very, very valuable skill that I still use today. And so I was okay with paying those dues. Now I did reach a ceiling of learning, which was the first year with the first company where he didn't really want to renegotiate our contract. And I was like, hey man, my value has changed. So I think that there's something to be talked about there where there's certain mentors based on the context of the relationship you have with them, whether you're working for a job for them or you're an intern or you're paying them for coaching. There's still people, and so sometimes their advice is a bit biased based on their benefit. So I always have had this mindset of, hey, no matter what, I got to think for myself, because if I don't, then people are just going to pigeonhole me and just keep me in this where they want me to be. That's just how the game is. So it's just like no difference like an NBA player knowing his worth and just signing a contract going somewhere else. So when I got an opportunity to go to a bigger company, I didn't really have that much more upside to go with him, and he was keeping me at a certain level. So I'd say, hey, my growth is done here, but not my growth is done here, but my growth is not done. So let me go to this other company. And then I went to the company where I learned more systems, processes. I started buying deals from the MLS with them, which I never thought I could do because I, like everybody else, there's no deals in MLS. So broke that limiting belief. So I think there's a lot of that, like pay your dues. You have to pay your dues some way or another. There's no shortcut to this business.
Yep. I love that. So I think that's such a great message for people to hear, is whether you're using the term squat up or you're going and getting hired by another company that already has been in the business, who has already gone through, the trials and tribulations and made mistakes and learned from those. And now you're getting to come into that opportunity where they've maybe, I wouldn't say the word perfected, but they've already, made some changes and adjustments. Now you can learn from their skill and their experience and see what they do that works well, see what they do that doesn't work well, right? And get that type of experience. So I love that a lot.
Let me add one little caveat to that too, or one little extra to that, is you do see like they're doing a lot of amazing things. They're doing things they've kind of somewhat perfected or they refined it. But there's also things that they're not doing well. The first company, that guy would renegotiate with every single deal no matter what. And he'd burn bridges. And I always felt like, hey, man, we're already getting a monster deal here. Like, why do you got to try to nibble off another 10, 20 grand on everybody? That was just his business model. He didn't care. It was like churn and burn. Like, likelihood of me doing business with that person again is probably pretty little. I don't care. I'm going to go for it. And it would run the people along the way. And he wouldn't really think about long term. He's still very successful, but that was just his business model. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do business that way. And then the other company that I worked for, they had a lot of disconnection between the project management and the acquisitions team, which I found to be really not best, because they would bid the project and say, hey, we think we have to do 60. The project manager would go look at that project that I'm going to make an offer on and say, oh, we have to spend 50,000 on this rehab. And I'm not a construction expert, but that would, obviously affect my offer. And then I got to see a pattern where I'm like, you know what? Let me go vet this myself. And I began to see there wasn't very much communication. And so therefore we were getting less deals simply because, the guys that had the 9-to-5 job as a project manager, he just wanted to have as much as possible on his rehab budget. So he didn't have that hard of a job. Right. And then, but then it affected my offer, because then I offered a little bit less and then we didn't get the deal. And now in my company, the departments are hand in hand, working together to make sure we're just accurate with our assessment of the real rehab so we can make an accurate, informed offer, not one based on someone's bias of wanting to work less and things like that. So I noticed all these inefficiencies. And then also they didn't want to do that much off-market stuff because they were buying from wholesalers or buying off MLS. But then I started working on off-market stuff myself because there were just more direct-to-seller opportunities. And so by working for these companies and other investors, you're going to learn a lot, but you're also going to learn what to do and what not to do, or what maybe you might do differently in your own firm once you go off, if you decide to do your own thing.
Yeah, no, those are some good takeaways right there for sure. So next thing I want to ask you is like, how did you figure out how to manage working in multiple locations? Because you got Hawaii, you got LA, you got Guadalajara, Mexico. I mean, that can be tough to manage things. How were you able to kind of pull that off?
Yeah, so it was a process. One of my mentors is Brandon Turner, and that's part of the reason I moved to Maui, Hawaii. So the first thing is that he said, and I remember him using like these two hands. He has these long hands because he's all super tall. But he's like, make sure you're not trying to build two bridges at once, because when I got back to Maui, I was itching to look at deals. I was itching to work on stuff. And he's like, just make sure that your business in LA is dialed in and you have the processes, the systems, the people, everything working before you start trying to do something else and expand, because then neither of them would will work out, because then you build the first bridge. And so I did that. I remember for like 3-4 months, I didn't pursue any deals in Maui. I was sitting at the time, I was just renting like a big master bedroom. I wasn't ready to buy a property there yet. And so I was renting this master bedroom, and I was like, man, I want to go to the beach, man. But I'm in there on Zoom, and that's during pandemic. So, things were kind of locked down and a little bit strict, but I was like, man, because I'm naturally I want to be with the squad, man. I want to be in the trenches with them. I want to be in the office, all this. I grew up in that kind of environment where we're working together as a team in a small office, everybody's just getting after it. But COVID changed everything, or helped evolve it, I guess we'll say. And I remember just being there, man, is this going to work? Is it going to work? And just pounding these meetings and training my team. But then after the third month, or in the middle of the third month, my team ended up locking up this deal, and I flew back. And I remember being on the flight thinking, man, I hope I'm not going to mess up their deal, and then maybe they missed something, because we still had inspection period. So I was just going to go and make sure that they didn't miss anything. And then it's a yay or a nay or a different price based on maybe something they missed, right? So I go and I walk that property. And at the end of that walkthrough, I was like, man, this is a good deal. And all I did was send the EMD and approve the numbers. Now I got a business, man. And so, that was kind of like the first step of just proving that I could buy houses in LA from Hawaii without actually being there. And all that 3-4 months of training led up to that. Obviously, I had some great salespeople and some people that I had hired on that were working with me, but that was like the first step. And then it's like, how do we do this more and more? And then we will buy typically 2-3 houses a month, because we're in LA, so we don't need to buy 10 houses. With our average profit is 50 at the time it was 50. Now it's closer to 65, 70. But at the time it was like, all right, we just got to get a couple of houses like this and keep going. And so that was the first part. And then the second part of that was, I was kind of highly influenced by somebody I met in Mastermind. He was an investor that had been kind of traveling the world for 6-7 years. He was more passive, but he had an Airbnb arbitrage and some units up in the Bay Area. And I did some traveling with him in Mexico, and we went on a couple of trips, and he'd hammer me because we'd be like an Uber, and he's like on Tinder, and he's like just doing his thing. He's single guy. I'm single guy too. And then I'm like, oh yeah, damn. Like, you don't have work to do? He's like, man, I got a team. Like, that's what, I got a team for. And then I had a team too, but they weren't doing everything. And I was still doing some a lot of things that maybe at this point in time, I really don't do. So every single time that I'd be doing something, I'd get off the call and he'd be like, yeah, but do you need to do that? Like, yeah, that needs to be done. But like totem pole, Alex, totem pole, he'd say like totem pole, like that seems like that's a middle or bottom of the totem pole task. You're at the top of the totem pole. Like, why are you doing that? And then he told me about this example where he was doing Airbnb on this 4-unit he owned. And then the Airbnb guest would ask for like something extra, like some towels or something. And he would literally be next door and he could just walk over and give it to them because he had all the supplies. But instead he'd find a way to get it delivered, or find some way, like if he was remote, to still be able to get it done. And then it helped train his mind to say, like, I don't really have to physically be there. And he says something that I'll never forget. He's like, bro, the only thing you need to be physically there for is to have sex and to get a haircut. Like, it's a bit extreme. He's in a kind of an extreme cat, but he was just trying to program my brain to think like, do I physically have to be there or can someone else be there? So he helped reprogram my brain. And so I was already remote. I was in Hawaii. So I ended up spending some time in Mexico with him and then on my own. And I have family down there in Guadalajara. I went down there a lot when I was young. And so I found this apartment that I just fell in love with. I'm like, man, this is like perfect. I would like to live here too. So I'm like, I can't live here. It was only like $1,000 a month for like this penthouse like unit because it's Mexico, so the housing is less expensive. And I'm like one of the best parts of town. It's awesome being single. Well, I mean married too and all that, but like awesome being single in Mexico, having a little bit of money. And so I just was like, man, I'm gonna live in both places. I'm gonna bounce between Mexico and Maui, and I'm just gonna do that because Maui's amazing, but it's a little slow for my pace. And then, it's not like I had a robust big business in Hawaii. It was just like I would do a couple of deals there, but the majority of my business was in SoCal and I was already remote. And the time difference also was helpful in Mexico because I was 2 hours ahead. So my days would be longer. I could have a better morning routine. And so time difference can either hurt you or help you because time difference in Hawaii doesn't help me because I'm behind 2 or 3 hours. So I'm chasing the day more often. So there's a couple little nuances there, but that's kind of, I guess, the long story of how like I've been able to go remote. There's some nuances to it.
Yeah, no, I've experienced that, how time changes can help you or hurt you too. But so I think that was pretty important for you. And I like to hear it myself too, because you can't help when you're a business owner, when you get to a certain point, you've developed really good skills and that you're the best at it in the company. So you want to do it because you're the best and it will get done the best. But should you be doing it is a good question to be asked and to be challenged on, because a lot of stuff you shouldn't be doing. If you got a team, like your team is there to do it. And so they need to level up or you need to get the right players in to help you support that. So I like hearing that message too. That was good. So
because delegation is a skill. And if you don't work on that skill, you don't get good at it and you just end up controlling everything. And it's hard for entrepreneurs, especially personalities or people that are hard drivers, the people that want to be in charge of everything, control. It's hard for them to let go. And I was typical on that. But then once I was able to let go and I was able to work on other things, I saw the value of like, hey, now I can go to this mastermind and not be on my phone all day long. Now I can go build this relationship in person with somebody. Now I can go do some social media that will help the business as a whole more than me just like looking at, more deals. And then when I have someone that could look at those deals and only show me the cream of the crop. So then you get to see that your time is, it can be more valuable other places. But if you never get out of just like that driving all the time and not letting other people kind of, do stuff that they can eventually do if you train them right, because it's like almost taking a little bit of a step back. You're like, okay, I'm taking a step back to train this person. And maybe I'm not going to buy a deal or two that I would have if I was in charge of acquisitions. But then now I actually have a business that can work on it as well. So there's definitely, the mindset shift is there too. So I had that problem too.
Yeah, we all struggle with that. I still struggle with it to this day, want to get my hands dirty and get stuff done. So dude, you talked about a deal you did at the Dealmaker Summit in Maui. I kind of want to highlight that real quick. We don't have to go like super, super detailed into it, but like give a little highlight reel on it, because that is just an awesome deal and a good example of perseverance and just like being able to be agile and adjust and do it in a different market. Like you're in multiple different markets. You had like your eye on the prize, like you wanted to own property in Maui and you made that dream happen. So I thought that story was cool, man.
Oh, thank you, man. So one of the first deals it was the first deal I did in Maui was this property. Maui has like South Maui, West Maui. And so I was living in South Maui. And so because I appeared on the Bigger Pockets podcast, show 418, if any fans are out there, I got attracted to some people that were on island that wanted to work with me. Well, this guy came in, he was a younger guy and, he wanted to work in acquisitions, and it was around that time I was still getting everything dialed in LA. And so he really wanted to start working, and doing some deals. So I made sure that he wanted it, and he bugged me for like a month or two. Finally, I was ready to start doing some marketing, getting out there some deals. We did Driving for Dollars. It was a simple deal where we went out there and picked up, I think, 700 addresses in a couple of weeks, because I told him, hey, I'm going to LA. If you want, here's my deal machine, password to log in and and to put in these addresses. He went out there and he did it. He wanted it bad. So he put in 700 addresses, and we started sending mailers to these 700 addresses, and we got a tired landlord. It was middle of COVID too, so you have some context. So, it was harder to get on island. You had to go through all these hoops. So that he was an older seller, had some tenants in there, but a lot of the experience I had with all these other deals helped a lot with that, because I got to read the situation with the tenants, because Hawaii and California are both tenant friendly states. And so they definitely favor that. And there was a eviction moratorium. So you weren't really legally allowed to evict anybody during that time. And so that was part of it. He didn't want to deal with the tenants. He had a hard money loan coming due. He didn't owe very much on the property, but he owed $400,000 on it. And then we had initially talked about buying it for $1.2 million, but the newer acquisition guy that was training, he was going to lose the deal. So I took it over, got on the phone with the guy, and he's like, I got the number out of him. He wanted 1.35 million. Well, I train all my acquisition guys, always talk about creative finance, seller finance, all that. And the guy had explored, he had some interest for that. He didn't say completely no. Usually people will say either no or they're open to it. And he was older, so he was familiar with the idea. So after we start negotiating, I lock up the deal, $1.35 million. Granted, I didn't have the money to take this deal down, because he wanted $400,000 for his, to pay off that hard money loan that was coming due. That was one of his motivations. And then he wanted $200,000 for his, he had some issues. His grown kids had some legal issues. So he wanted $600,000. We agreed to 1.35. So after getting him in escrow to really agree to seller finance, because I was shopping the deal around kind of like hard money, but it was ugly. It was like, oh man, this is a big loan. It was just tough. But the ARV was like 1.7 to maybe 1.9. And so I knew I had something there. I tried to wholesale it. Didn't really work out. But during that time that I was on, the 3 months I was on island, I wasn't pursuing deals. I was networking. So it's not like I stopped doing anything, right? I wasn't idle. I was, out there checking around, seeing what people were doing. And then I met this investor. He ended up referring me to someone that wanted to buy in this particular pocket of South Maui. Called the guy up. Dude, he jumped on the plane like on a moment's notice. Like he was there. He hit all those hurdles, did the COVID test. And then I'm like, damn, this guy is serious. Like and it literally, from when I got on the phone with him, told him that the inspection was in 2 days. I mean, I want to say like in 30 hours, he was on island, which was a pretty big feat. Helped me from Indiana and jumping through all those hoops. I wined him and dined him. And then he walks the property with me. He's I'm in. So he ended up actually putting up the $600,000. I only put the $20,000 to lock up the deal. And then at closing, I got that 20 back. And then he was completely passive, man. I negotiated with the tenants. I got them out and did some cash for keys. I rehabbed the property, managed that project. And during the rehab of the project, the market just skyrocketed, and it really worked in our favor. And the fact that we had the seller finance and had a low payment and a 3-year kind of balloon on a 3-year runway on it allowed us to not be, at pressure on the hard money, very expensive loan to have to to flip it. And then my partner just called me. He's just like, man, I think we got to consider keeping this thing. Long story short, we went to refinance. It went terrible. We didn't get the, kind of what we were looking for. They gave us a really low appraisal. A lot of lenders are licensed in Hawaii to do loans, but they don't do a lot of business in Hawaii. So when they go do it, they had appraisal issues, which we had. So we put it on the market. We're into this thing, I think like 1.6, 1.7. We're like, you know what? Let's just shoot for the stars. We knew it was worth at that point, maybe in the mid twos or low to mid twos. But we're like, hey, if someone wants to give us $2.7 million, give us $1 million payday, we'll take it and run. Well, we got an offer for 2.45 mil. And I was just uneasy, bro. I was like, man, this is a trophy property. It's a couple streets over from my mentor, Brandon Turner's house. This thing is a 3,500 square foot house on a 30,000 square foot lot with, magic ocean views. I couldn't let it go, man, because it wasn't an emotional thing. It was just like, this thing has a lot of upside. There's a lot of properties that I'm willing to sell, but this is one of those I want to try to keep. And so we took it off the market and we went for a second refinance. And then back in September of last year, 2022, we were able to successfully pull it off, get a loan for 1.7 million. We literally got a wire for like $1 million, of which I saw no money because my partner was pretty much getting all his money back or most of it. And I just call it a big boy burr. And then it's a trophy property that I own 50%, he owns 50%. And now there's it appraised for $2.7 million in September. And now there's nothing for sale for less than $3 million. And we're able to keep it. And that's, I guess, I was trying to keep it short, man, but it's just magical,
Dude, there's so much that happened in that story. Like, you guys had to negotiate with the tenants, cash for keys. Like, there was so much that happened. It's 3 separate, like, units, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you got ocean views. Like it's a cool property, man. Like, so huge props to you to pull something off. I mean, you're doing sexy deals in LA. You got sexy deals in Hawaii now. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. So that's pretty impressive, man. I mean, most people can't pull that off. That's some big boy stuff, working on some big boy deals. So,
Yeah, but it's again, it's the evolution of all the skills and all that, all the stuff. If I would have had that deal opportunity way long ago, I would have messed that up. I wouldn't have been able to
of
pull that
course.
thing. The more advanced you get as a deal maker, as an investor, the more upside you have because now you have skills to put more deals. Because a lot of this business is deal structuring, is it not? Just like being
Yes.
structure deals and view the deal in a certain way that can still work for both parties.
Yeah. No, you put a tremendous amount of skills all together, all at once. So
I can't
super
wait for you to
impressive.
see it and spend some time there, brother. I know you will.
Yeah. Hey, let's
Manifest
go.
it.
Let's go. I love it. Well, cool, man. So much fun to have you on. If you guys are ever in Southern California, you guys gotta connect with Alex on social and see when the next Dealmaker Summit is. That's something you don't want to miss. And then make sure you guys follow Alex on Instagram, Alex Camacho TV. Lots of great content, great person to be in touch with. So, Alex, thanks so much for being on, man. Absolute pleasure. And we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate you having me, man. Have a great day.
Absolutely. All right, man.
Let's go.
Catch you guys later. Until next time. Peace.